Welcome to 2021, everybody. You survived 2020. I was at the grocery store. This was on the 31st, and it was absolutely mayhem. And crazy as all get up, and you can see there was a line of people coming out the liquor store. There was a line of people everywhere. And I asked the lady, I said, why in the world is it so crazy? Can people just not stay home? And she said, I think that this is just proof that we are all excited to be done with 2020. Like, this is going to be a serious, I think that you probably partied the hardest you've ever partied. It's like 1999, now it's 2020, you know? And you pushed hard to finish 2020, and wasn't it nice just to wake up and there's something, just to be like, okay, whew, there was a new day. We could close a chapter and move on in life. Isn't it amazing how God created times and seasons for us? And it almost helps us with our psyche, the way we believe, the way we see the world. And I just want to say welcome to a brand new year. My hope for you, and even for myself, is that we would be able to walk into something new. And I believe that God has something amazing planned for each and every one of us in this new year. And I'm hoping that we can hit it all together. How many of you were just looking forward to a little change in life? Yeah? Normally people don't like change. This year, we like change. We want change. We want to move in the direction of change. And it's interesting. In 2001, my dad and I, a couple other people as well, took a missions trip to Thailand. I think it was 2001. Dad, was it 2001 or 2002? Perfect. Yeah, that's how I would try to get my allowance raised as well. And yeah, exactly. And we took a missions trip. It was from the church here at BCF. We took a missions trip to Thailand. We went all the way up to the northern border by Myanmar and Laos. And we hiked all the way up into the jungle. We spent a week up in there, a little bit more than a week. And it was an incredible trip. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go to that part of the world. But man, just a total different viewpoint, and everything that we did. Like, we ended up hiking into this jungle. It was an 8-hour hike in, and then we stayed for a week. It was another, full day hike out, and we were it was the best shape we'd ever been in our life, I can tell you that. And no, it wasn't the best shape you've ever been in. It was a tough trip, and I just remember being able to go in there and to meet people who are like at a completely unforgotten part of the earth. No cell phones, no internet. I don't know how they live. I don't know how they survive without having TV or Netflix, but they somehow managed to survive. And so they grow their own food, and we went up there, and we were able to spend time a week in this small little village that had just moved. And so we were helping them reestablish in a new place because the old place had been flooded out. The new place we were helping them reestablish, and they had just built a church, and it's a beautiful scenario. And as an American and as a meat eater, sometimes these trips are really hard for people like myself or even my dad. And I remember we went in, and they would, in the morning, we got in the afternoon. In the morning for breakfast is white rice and green stuff. I don't eat it very often for breakfast or ever. White rice and green stuff. The green stuff, it was kind of like a jalapeno paste. They take jalapenos and crush them up. We don't know exactly what was in it, but it was green stuff. And it helped with the taste of nothing on the rice. And so you would put the green stuff on the rice, and it made it a little bit better. So lunch comes around. We've worked hard all day, and we're ready for lunch. And we can see them preparing lunch. They prepared lunch for us. Outdoor kitchens, and we actually even got to take part in the lunch. We had some chicken. It was a stir fry. And I just remember the smell, the absolute incredible smell of this stir fry. They let us take part in it because they took the chickens, and they let us kung fu karate chop the chickens to kill them. Also very fun. And so we got to be a part, and then they pluck the chickens, and they cook this thing. And I remember we're starving, and we're looking at this stir fry, fresh, vegetables and everything they're throwing this. All that stuff is grown right there. And we got to kill the chicken. It was that fresh. And I remember we're just talking about it while we're working. We're talking oh, can you smell that? My stomach is the white rice and green stuff is not holding me over, and I need a good solid meal. We could see him cooking it, and it looks so delicious and so amazing. So they say, all right, go wash up. It's time for lunch. So we go and wash up, and with great anticipation, we show up at the dinner table, and they open up the pot of this beautiful stir fry, and it is all red and smells like dead fish. And I remember thinking to myself, what happened? I went to the bathroom. It was quick. And what in the world happened? And at the very last, I remember we're eating this thing like, oh, it looked and smelled amazing, but now it smells like dead fish and rotten tomatoes. And we're just like, we're trying to not look like my face looks right now, because we're trying to enjoy the hospitality, and we're thinking to ourselves, how did they mess this up? It looked good, it smelled good, and then all of a sudden something happened to this stir fry that ruined it completely. And so we all ate the dinner, and we're like, were there dead fish in that? Were there dead fish? What in the world happened to it? I remember after the meal, we didn't eat very much. And after the meal, we're all that evening, we're talking and asking the question, what happened? So the next day, of course, they're getting ready, and they're cooking this wonderful jungle stir fry again for lunch, which we can smell, and it looks good. And we're just thinking to ourselves, I wonder what's going to happen, So, instead of going and washing our hands, we're, walking around to see what's happening. And at the very last minute, when the stir fry is finished, they took these wonderful cans of sardines in tomato sauce, which still exist, because I found it, and they opened them up, and they just proceeded to dump 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Why they thought that dead fish and rotten tomatoes was going to make the stir fry any better, I don't have a clue. Now, if you like these, you're part of the problem. And I found this oddly and I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? And so they dumped it again, and of course now we know that's what it is. It's the smell of rotten fish and tomatoes, And on day 2, of course we finished, and we're thinking to ourselves, this would be so much better if they just didn't put that in the stir fry. But the question is, who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them? And I know we went around the room, and nobody was raising their hand. We're thinking, we don't want to be unhospitable, and we don't want to be rude or anything like this, And so it's all right, here's on day 3, the goal was this. We all scattered to find the stockpile so that we could remove the stockpile from the camp so that they would not be able to find them, and we could have a good stir fry. Unfortunately, we couldn't find where they were hiding them. And we looked and looked and looked, and all of a sudden, day 3, guess what we had for lunch? A jungle stir fry with absolute disgusting sardines and tomato paste put in it on the 3rd day. And now at this point, we're all looking at each other like we're starting to starve to death. This is like we're looking for things to kill and eat in the middle of the night, And we're wasting away, and we're thinking to ourselves, please God, this is not the end of my life. This is not what you have pronounced for me. And so we determined that night that we were going to draw straws and have someone elected to represent us on what we felt was a solution. No more sardines and tomato paste in the jungle stir fry. I think my dad was the one that was elected, thank God. And of course, the next day, he was elected to go and have the conversation. Like, hey, man, let's talk about the stir fry, And he did a very good job negotiating his way through this. And at the end of that, they stopped, and the person who was making it, they actually were like, oh, yeah, oh, for sure. We actually thought that you guys wanted it because one of you guys brought it up here. So this whole time, someone who came in with us carried an entire bag of sardines and tomato paste that we had to eat. They were like, we don't even like them either. We're glad you said something. We'll remove them and take them out of there. And it was like all of a sudden, something magical happened. And on the 5th day, we had the best tasting, most yummy, incredible jungle stir fry that did not include dead fish or rotten tomatoes. And it was the moment that changed for a lifetime. And I remember thinking to myself, who? Now, we never found the person. They never fessed up, but they're probably over there going, oh, this stir fry is disgusting. You know what it needs? A little bit of dead fish and some tomato paste. That's what it needs. And we never discovered who in the world had brought it, but we did know this, is that in order for something to change, we actually had to either A, locate and completely destroy the anchovy stockpile, or B, we needed to communicate with somebody. And nothing was going to change unless we made a decision to communicate. Listen to this scripture in Galatians 6, 7 through 8. It says this, do not be misled, and you cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. The point of this is that whatever you plant, you will harvest. Now, we were stuck in the middle of a jungle, and by saying nothing and doing nothing, we continued to get the same disgusting result day after day after day until we chose to make an actual change. And when we chose to make a change and communicate, that changed our day. It changed our life. It changed our bellies. It changed everything about that moment. My great concern for 2021 is that we have to do another year with tomato paste anchovy spread. I don't know about you, but 2021 tasted a whole lot, or 2020 tasted a whole lot like this. Anybody agree? And it's obvious that people are out there that like this stuff because it's still on the shelf and is still getting in the stir fry. But I don't know about you. I would like a little change in 2021. And God says, I will not be mocked. You will reap what you sow. 2020 was a year of us reaping stuff that we'd been sowing for years as a nation and even as a world. I know sometimes we want to step back and we want to say, maybe it wasn't, or maybe this and that. But God will not be mocked. Sometimes the meal that you eat is the exact same one that you cooked. And all of us have been in this coming out of this wonderful year of 2020, but all of us hopefully can look back and recognize the moments in which those seeds were sown. We can recognize decisions that were made in our culture, maybe in the way we believe or the way we think or what we do. We can see that decisions were made along the way in our school systems, in our political systems, in our churches, in our lives, in the way that we operate and the things that we choose to introduce into our lives. Decisions were made over the last several years that led us to a place that all of us got to enjoy the fruit of everything that had been planted over the year in 2020. And if we are going to move forward into a new 2021, whether it's you as an individual, us as a church, us as a community, a state, or a nation, we are going to have to choose to actually plant a few different things. And if we don't, we're walking into 2021 and nothing will change. But I can tell you this, I feel like I'm on day number 4, and I'm electing a representative to go before and to discuss with the people, putting in this gross sardine and tomato paste, that it's time for a change. And this is my heart and my intention and my hope for 2021. If you do not locate and completely destroy the anchovy spread or elect a representative to go before you, God will not be mocked. We are all going to be eating anchovy stir fry for 2021. And I can't go there again. Comprende? Not going to happen. I don't want to do it. And I don't think you do either. Paul finishes Galatians after this by saying, this is the very next verse, he says this, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. But we need to change our strategy. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we, right here, you and me, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. I have to be willing to ask myself, and you have to be willing to ask yourself this question, what did you sow in 2020? Because that's what you will be reaping in 2021. And for some, we have to look back, and what was sown was hatred and discord, frustration and anger and selfishness, self-preservation was sown in 2020. But I believe with all of my heart, and I can see in the people of God, that we have spent 2020 sowing good seed. And where some have sown hatred, we have sown love. Where some have sown discord, we have been able to sow unity. Where some have sown all of the anger and the angst and the frustration at their neighbors and their relatives, some have gotten outside of themselves and continued to love and serve others in their community. But I want to let you know that whatever you sow, you will reap. Life's not full of on and off switches. Sometimes we hope that we could just turn something off. I don't like that program. I'm going to turn that one off. Or that person's talking too loud. I'm going to mute that channel. Life's not full of on and off switches. We can't just make a change and then all of a sudden it happens. God created this world in such a way that it's springtime and harvest. And when you sow, you have to sow and pray and wait and hope and continue to trust the Lord before a seed comes up, before the seed can be harvested, before the seed can be turned into actual food and sustenance for your life. God created this pattern for our life. And so much of us just want to go 2020, click, 2021, click. But I want to remind you that if you want to walk in victory, in wholeness, in health, and healing, if you want to walk connected with God and in connection and unity with your community and your neighbors, we actually have to sow those seeds. We cannot live in self-preservation and just hope someday a switch flicks on that puts us all back into a community in unity and in love. We actually have to make those decisions. So here's what we do, and this is as a society we do this, but I do this as well, and some people probably more than others, but we find ourselves usually in January at the beginning of a year. Sometimes it's the beginning of a season, but most of us at the beginning of the year, we follow this progression where we spend January assessing our desires, and then what we do is we take those desires and we make decisions, and then those decisions have pre-established and premeditated choices that we're going to follow throughout the year. What I mean by that is that you show up in January and you think, I want to feel better, look better, do better. I want a different job, or I want this. And so something starts, I need a girlfriend, or whatever it is, something in your heart. Those are good choices, by the way. If you don't have one, you should get one. Yeah, we can help you. You can do this. We have a desire that's usually inside of us that starts that guiding factor for our life. And we say, you know what, I want to do this. I want to get better. I want to make this thing happen. And so it starts with a desire. I want to be the best at this. I want to make sure I get this accomplished, or I want to make this thing happen. And it starts with a desire, and what you do is you normally sit down with your calendar and you start to make decisions based off of that. Well, if I'm going to lose weight, I'd better do something about it. So you pull out your calendar and you start mapping out the decisions that you're going to make in the future that are going to help you get to that desire. You know, if you want a boyfriend or girlfriend, you're going to have to do something. You can't just sit at home and hope that they show up and knock on your door. You're going to have to do something. And those desires lead to decisions. And then what happens is that we take our calendar year and we lay out an idea of premeditated choices that we're going to make. Choices like, I'm going to wake up when the alarm goes off. That's a tough one for some people in the room, okay? Myself included. My wife's like, oh, really? Why do you set an alarm? I don't know. I set like 10 of them and then see which one I want to do in the morning. So one of them works out usually. And so if I want to get up before the kids, I have to actually follow through, and I make a choice to follow through, that when the alarm goes off, I will get up. And this is how we lay out our year. It starts with a desire, with premeditated decisions, and then we make choices along the way. If you want to start a business, if you want to change careers, if you want to make any choice or decision that is going to change or affect your life, this whole sow and reap idea, you're going to have to follow this pattern: desire, decision, and choice. Now, we do know this. Some of us, as we've laid out our year with here's our desire, here's the decision, and here's the premeditated choice, sometimes we can keep pace with that. What you decide in January, you can keep pace with, which is awesome. Others of us, by the time we hit February, find ourselves being just dragged by some of our choices that came from decisions that had started with desires. And there are some of us in this room that have some serious road rash from choices we've made. And all of those choices usually started with a desire. And so we find that this is the pattern in which we sow and which we reap. In 2020, we did a lot of reaping from some of the choices that we had made. And when you go into 2021, you're going to find the exact same thing, that our choices actually make a real impact on how we move forward. But a lot of times, those choices come from desires. Every once in a while, sure, you can make a choice that's in a whim. But if you're planning and structuring and trying to grow and build something, it all came from a desire. So I want to challenge you in 2021. I want to encourage you to try something new. I'm going to give you one thing to try, and I'd be curious to see if it helps and if it can get this anchovy spread out of our life forever. I immediately regretting biting 6 of them because then they think that people will care for them. So I will return those. Now they think that there's a serious market that spiked in January for sardines in tomato sauce. Here's what I challenge you to try. For the next 21 days, to take a moment and ask God one question. God, what is your desire? We typically plan our year and our life based off of our desires. But a Christ follower, someone who sets a different course, who looks different and lives different, starts with this question. God, what is your desire for my life? What is your desire for my family? God, what is your desire for my business or my retirement? God, what is your desire for my time, my energy? God, what is your desire for my kids? And a Christian makes one simple choice to start their year asking God his heart instead of defining your heart. This is what I'd like to challenge you in this year, that in 2020, that we run God's plan instead of our plans. And I think that actually that could do a real big thing. I think it could change the trajectory of your life. It could change the trajectory of our community. It could change what we look like in the future. And it could make a completely different world for your kids to grow up in. If we would just stop putting ourselves at the center of everything and start putting God, his desire and his will first. So the challenge for you and for myself, this January is to take 21 days. We're going into 21 days of prayer and fasting as a church, and we're going to be taking some time to just ask this question. God, what's your desire? What's your desire for this house? God, what's your desire for my life? God, what is your desire? Before we announce, hey, here's what God's doing in 2021. Here's where we're doing. And here's, and I know some of you have already probably feel really bad right now that you've already posted your plans on Facebook for 2021. I'm going to be a better, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hit this thing. And fortunately, most of you cannot plan your vacations, so you kept those quiet. But normally, by the 3rd, we already know what you're going to do in May and July and August, all the things that you're planning and the concerts that you're going to go to. Instead of us just laughing at you this year, we all realize it's really hard to plan. Sometimes people have asked the question, okay, but if I'm going to make a change from my desires to God's desires, how do I know that his desires for me are good? Some of you don't trust that God's desires or will for your life is actually going to lead to you to where your heart's content. But we know, give it a try. See what it looks like. But for every year that I've put him first, everything in my heart came true. There's something about living a life for God that will just change everything and make everything count and everything work. Jeremiah 29:11, maybe you've heard this, but if you haven't, I want you to hear this with new ears today. For God's plans for you, For I know the plans that I have for you. This is God speaking to the exiles, people who've just been kicked out of their nation. They've lost everything. They're broken. They're living in disaster, and they're sitting here questioning God's goodness for them. And he reaches out to them and says this, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for your good and not for disaster. They're plans to give you a future and to give you a hope. In those days, when you pray, I will listen. This is a promise that he's making to you and to me. And if you look to me wholeheartedly, you will find me. I will be found by you, says the Lord. I will end your captivity, and I will restore your fortunes. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for that. I'm ready to see our life and our community be released from this captivity and be restored our fortunes. God's heart for you and for me is very, very good. If you're looking forward into 2021 and thinking, it's not hopeful, it's because you're looking at the wrong plan. God's plan for you is very good. I would encourage you to start this year with God's desire. Once you know that, start making decisions premeditated throughout your year to put him first and premeditated choices to follow through. This is how we get the anchovy spread out of the stir fry. And I'm pretty passionate about getting this anchovy spread out of the stir fry. Now I just realized I think I threw that receipt away. Oh no, what's going to happen with me? When I was in high school, I had a teacher. I was 16 years old, and I had a teacher challenge each and every person in the class to define for themselves what success was. Success, in a dictionary term, is when you have a goal and you accomplish it. It's the accomplishment of a goal or a purpose. That's what success is listed in the dictionary, which means you have a goal or you have a purpose in mind, and you accomplish it. What's interesting to look at this is that most of us lay out our year with this desire, which is a goal. We make decisions and we make choices to get ourselves accomplished to that goal. And so I remember at 16 years old, in high school, public high school, Bend High, for everybody who went to Bend High, and graduated. I heard it's not there anymore this year, but I went. And I remember sitting down at a desk in high school and actually I asked the question, Lord, what is success? And I remember the Lord just put it in my heart, and I chose to make this my idea for success, is that success for me, starting at 16, was to determine what God's heart was for me in every season, and then just to make that my goal. At 16 years old, as much as I wanted to make my desires and the things that I wanted to do, I realized that true success for me would be the moment I could hear his voice, know his heart, and then just accomplish whatever he has. And every year since I was 16, that's been my goal. I just asked the question, okay, God, what do you want next? Okay, God, what do you want next? And there are moments when I stop and I go, I wonder if I should insert like some of my stuff. And I just feel like every year the Lord says, well, so far is the desire of your heart coming true in following my desires? And the answer is every year, yes, and better. And so far, I don't even have to ask to put my desires on the plate. I just have to ask, what are his desires for my life? God, what are your desires for my kids? Like, I want to raise my kids in a godly way, but I don't feel like I can define what that looks like. But I feel like God has it defined really well. So I'll run his play. And I have to make a decision in my life to be able to run his play. And so I want to encourage you to join me and to join us in the next 21 days, to pray and to fast, to seek God and God's heart for your life, for your relationships, for your kids and your grandkids, for your time and business, for your travel, for safety, for health and work, for your school, for your mental health. Seek his heart for margin, for growth, and for good. And next week, I'm going to share with you what we as a leadership team believe the Lord is actually calling us as a church to, his desire for this house for 2021. I'm going to share that next week. But this week, I want to encourage you just to take time and pray, worship, read his word, journal, find quiet time, whether it's individually and together with family, together with your church family, to just stop and hear the heart of the Lord. And my heart is that he would speak, we would listen, and that here we would know his desire for his people in 2021. That will change where we are. That will make a massive change. What we're going to do as a church is we're creating space here throughout the week. The next 3 weeks, we're going to be having to open up the church, whether it's here in the sanctuary or in Growth Track Room, at 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. And we have different people who've said, yeah, I'll lead prayer, I'll lead worship. Some of them will just be worship sets. Some of them will be prayer times. It's posted on our app. If you don't have our app, please download our app. You can go on there and see who's already leading it this week. And for the next 3 weeks, Monday to Friday, we are going to have a prayer at 7 and a prayer at 7 in the evening. Some of you guys, 7 in the morning doesn't exist for you, but there is a 7 in the evening. And vice versa. For some people, they are in bed by 6:30, so well done. And you can make that thing happen. So we're hitting everyone. And you don't have to sign up. You just can show up whenever you want. The church will be open. On Saturdays, we actually have Living Torah, which is a Messianic community that meets here and worships. And they're going to get Saturday covered. And then on Sunday, we worship here. And so we'll get that covered. So we're going to be taking every day of the 21 days to really pray, fast. I would encourage you to, if you've never fasted, we have some great books on it. You can read into it. Pick something. The idea is that there's an element of your life where you decrease and an element of your life that you increase. And so we want to ask the Lord, what does that look like? And so we'll be here in the sanctuary. We'll be in the prayer room. I would encourage you to seek the Lord at home. Or you could go to the only coffee shop that's open in town. Yeah, they have good coffee. They have good coffee, and you can enjoy that. Worship team, would you come up? I want to worship and sing a song here as we just prepare our hearts. I really feel like as we start off this time of prayer and fasting with burritos, I also want to start it off with worship. And I want to sing this together, but I just want to encourage you that this year, that we would be a people that seeks to know God's heart.